That's why we started all this.
Yeah.
I fell off all the time when I had to break in the horses. And I remember I asked, is it possible that we can break them in that they don't buck? Because I was so afraid of falling off. A lot of people say, yeah, but that's all only tricks. You're working with tricks. But that's because they never have the patience to stand and look what I'm doing. Because I never work with tricks.
You need that experience one time to go, you were right, it worked.
Yeah.
For you to feel comfortable to be able to do that.
But of course you don't do that at the Olympics. It comes from when you teach a young horse to go into canter. If you always teach them that you push forward to go into canter, then of course they will run in the transition from trot to canter or from walk to canter. But you cannot force the horse to do piaffe. You cannot force a horse to do Spanish walk. You cannot force a horse to do lay down.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to try out and say, oh, that doesn't work. Yeah. She can read the book and say, oh, my father said it doesn't work. Yeah. So I don't have to go down that path.
This episode of TRT the Podcast is brought to you by Connect, fully electric tractors.
So guys, welcome back. My guest today needs no introduction, people. He, of course, has a long list of achievements, including 2 Olympic Games. He has trained many horses to Grand Prix. For many years, he has trained and taught some of the best and most successful riders in the world, all over the world, including being part of the very current Jesse Van Breda Wernel and Delira story. But most importantly, he has been one of my greatest mentors, actually the most important and influential person in my life and journey as a horseman. He is my friend, and I'm very grateful to have him here on the show today to share with you guys some of his wisdom and some of the valuable things he's taught me along the way, which I probably already knew. Morten Thomsen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
My pleasure. There's been a lot of people, of course, that have been waiting for us to get together. Most of our closest friends.
We are together so often.
We are together often, but for them to listen in to our interesting conversations. I'm going to go just back to the beginning of how we met, actually. And then when I was preparing this, I was sort of going back to those times of when we met. And I remembered actually very vividly the first time I met you. And of course, I arrived with my then wife all the way from Australia, a couple of bushwhackers, come all the way out from Oz, first time into Europe, and we're standing in the little airport there with a fat jet lag and sitting with our bags, and the airport is slowly emptying, and then there's one guy over in the corner and he has the paper here like this, and then he's dropping the paper and says, "Oh, you must be the two from down under." That was the first introduction. I remember we went in the car, drove, we had to do hay and straw, and you said to me, "You've driven a tractor before?" "Yeah, of course, driven a tractor." We went to the machine place and jumped in the big fence. It had more buttons and God knows what, and a big trailer with a turning axle on the back, and you went off to the field where we had to pick up the straw, and I was getting out in this and finally worked out how to get the tractor going. I get out onto the road, and then I forget that the traffic's coming from the opposite direction. I pull out of this trailer. So, geez, I've been in Denmark 10 minutes and I feel I've almost killed myself already and ruined the tractor. And then, of course, after almost a year working with you, I remember leaving, and you giving me the what I learned to be the trustworthy handshake of a man. And you said to me, anything you said to me was, "Ride proper." And that stuck with me from the moment I left you. To ride proper, to do it proper, not do it by half. So I want to actually show you a photo to bring you back to that time, and then maybe you can discuss a little bit about those first encounters. This will be an interesting photo for you to see. I'm not sure if you've even seen it. I look like I'm 12. I was actually 21.
Yeah.
It's some time ago.
That's some time ago, yeah.
And you know the horse, of course.
It's done, isn't it?
It's Bernstein.
It's Bernstein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there I was
I thought it was the first horse you broke in.
at your place.
Yeah, that was done.
You're going to bring that up.
That's why we started all this.
Yeah.
Because you got on and he turned to the left and you turned to the right.
Yeah.
And you're way apart.
And the only thing you said to me was, I got up and I remember the surface being all over me, and you saying, next time remember to close your mouth. As I was filling up.
And then I remember I also said to you, we cannot make your legs longer.
Yeah.
So we need to teach the horse to steer.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that was my first encounters. And of course I'd been doing not a particularly structured style of starting the horses. But that's when I started to learn about structure and starting the young horse and what the process was. But then, of course, we got to sort of working the young horses together and starting the young horses, and we came up with the discussion about how can we start them, where I remember one horse we had where I was getting on and you were standing next to the horse, and as I went up I was totally clumsy and hit the hip with my knee or something, and then he bucked and I was flying in the air and I came down on top of you. And I'm sure that is the moment where it clicked in my mind that I said, when you started to tell me we have to teach them a way that they don't have to buck.
Yeah.
And I was thinking in my mind, then this is probably a good idea because I don't want to be landing on top of
and it actually started when I was a student, because I fell off all the time when I had to break in the horses. And I remember I asked if it's not possible, is it possible that we can break them in that they don't buck? Because I was so afraid of falling off.
Yeah.
I fell off so many times. And they were laughing at me and said, no, they always buck when we put the saddle on. They always buck when we get on. They have to buck so that they don't buck later on.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I need to find another way, because this, I cannot make that.
Yeah. Well, there was also a bit the tradition in Australia when I learned in the beginning that to put the saddle on and let the horse free and let him deal with it. And there was also that bit of security in it from the cowboys that they said, then you can see what he can do.
Yeah.
And as I learned later from you, that actually that was then a pattern.
Yeah, then they think they have to do this.
Yeah. And then you see it again in a moment where you really don't want it to happen. The pressure
when you
comes.
get on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the process then in that time of, so you thought there has to be a way. What was then the thought process in what did you change in order to make that possible?
In the beginning, I didn't change anything because I didn't know if everybody told me it's not possible. And that was before internet. So I could never see anybody do it. So, and everybody I talked with about it said, no, we always did it like this. And in the end, I was so fed up with it that I actually stopped as an instructor because I didn't want to do it anymore.
Mm.
And then I met a guy that saw me ride, and he said, come work for me because you have talent. I said, thank you. And then he said to me, do you mean then you come work for me? No, I said, then I want to learn more. So I went to Germany again, and I didn't know if it was possible, but I had that idea that maybe it could be possible, and that everything we teach your horse, and that came later when we found out that it was possible. Then I think the first guy I saw do it was John Lyon, and then when I saw that was possible, then I thought, then we should be able to teach your horse anything without resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when I was a student, I asked my instructor, he was very good at doing piaffe. So I asked him, how do you teach a horse piaffe? And he said, you hold the reins and you kick. And if they don't do it, then you hold it a little bit harder and kick a little bit harder. And I said, and if they still don't do it? You're asking so stupid questions, he said to me. Then, of course, you take another horse. And I didn't have so many horses, so I had to figure a way that I could teach them.
Yeah. And then if you, what is that got you interested in? Because I know you also introduced me to a lot of different trainers that were doing different things, teaching their horses different things. And it's of course not, also probably not in that time, and still it's getting more now, of course, because of social media. And like you say, when there's no internet, there's no YouTube, you only see things in
A
real
certain way,
and in real life, because you don't have that access to so many different cultures and so many different training methods. But what was that curiosity in you with all the different trainers, and also to what was your introduction then to horsemanship? Because also at that time it wasn't a normal thing for a dressage rider in Europe to start looking at someone doing at that time.
No, I think what was the trigger was that when I felt that I couldn't teach the horse, I saw it as my fault, not the horse's fault. And I needed to change something. And all my colleagues said, no, you just have to continue. And I said, but it doesn't get better. I need to find another way. And I need to teach the horse in another way. And so every time I saw somebody that could do something that I couldn't do, I searched for them. I talked with them. And that didn't matter if it was in the circus or in horsemanship, people that did something different in carriage driving or whatever it was. I just looked for what they could do and see if I could use it.
When did you first see John Lyons?
I think it was when I was teaching a woman in Wisconsin, and I was asking her if there was somebody in America that could break in a horse without bucking. And she was looking at me and saying, like, are you insane? And then she said, I saw this cowboy that did something similar to what you're talking about. And then she gave me, I saw in her place on a video, she got a video film that she put in her video recorder. And then I took it with me home, but of course I couldn't play it in Europe because it was a different system.
Yeah.
So it took a long time before I found out what to do.
Yeah.
And then that was also when I met Ostermeyer.
In that time.
In that time, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it must have been in the early 90s.
Yeah. And what is when you see someone like Albert Ostermeyer and you wonder which planet?
Yeah, I was watching it like the video like 5 times, and I still couldn't believe what I saw.
Yeah.
And but then I started to get it.
Yeah.
And I still think I have so much to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many people out there that can do things that I cannot.
Yeah. It's that never-ending search.
Yeah.
It's luckily for us, we can do it for a long time.
Yeah.
So of course you've been for me a real role model, and a real role model for me, not just a model playing a role. We often talk about guys that we see and when we call each other, I saw a guy and he's not just talking the talk, he can walk the walk. And that was also my reflection of you always from the beginning. When I came home from Australia from almost that year, I had the experience that I met a guy that could walk the walk. You were not just talking and a lot of this and try this and you have to do that. And I had also similar experiences when I couldn't teach a horse to do something, or we had the race horses. You just get rid of it. It's a shit horse. And then I really had the feeling that I had experienced someone that really could teach a horse something. And I think everybody that meets you, even just for a single lesson, instantly feels your natural energy for and motivation to want to do it right. Not just to say, you can try this. And I never got the feeling that you really bought into the playing a person, which in the dressage world, me coming from Australia, I think is a big part. And I think it's difficult this is getting a little bit further away from the question, but you feel in the dressage world, it is hard to make a living. It is hard for people to make a career and to survive in it. And definitely in top sport, you feel there is the earning of a certain status before you get points, and you have to be that rider. And you see a lot of trainers being the trainer with maybe not a lot of support behind them. It's playing that role. And I know that people that have even one experience with you one time say that was the real deal. Why is it? Where does that come from you from the beginning? And why is it important for you to be the real deal, to be able to walk the walk and not just play the role?
I don't know where it comes from. I think I've always been searching for finding other ways, thinking out of the box, trying of different things. I think when I started very young, and the last thing my father said to me, because he was against that I worked with horses, and the last thing he said to me is, the support from home goes away if you do this job. You have to make your own living. So I would never give up. I needed to find a way that I could survive in it. And if I always saw it that way, if the horse couldn't do what I wanted it to do, it was never the horse's fault. It was always my fault, because I didn't know how to teach it. And sometimes I didn't succeed with what I wanted, but then I taught it something else, and then the thing that I wanted to teach it came, because I taught it something else. And I don't know where it comes from. I think I'm natural curiosity. My natural curiosity.
Yeah.
We often talk, and then I say to you, look, I saw this and this and this. This dog trainer or this animal trainer do this, and maybe we can use that.
Yeah. I think that's why I like that feeling also from you. And it was also maybe something from my father too, that he would always say, Dad, it's no bullshit. That's the real thing. That's what you have to search for.
Yeah.
And my grandfather also. And also when I first came to Europe, there was, of course, the feeling from some people that he's going there, he thinks he's gonna do something, and you go all the way away from your family. And it's interesting you say that. So your father then said, if you just decide this path, then we cut you off, you do your thing, and then you have no support from home. So that was the feeling you had to make it.
Yeah.
There was no option.
There was no plan B.
No. That's also interesting. I have spoken about those things also in people podcasts with other things. As I was preparing this, I realized how much comes from you that's in me, and along the way, you think that's you. You think you've been a genius and you've thought that stuff up. But the plan, I did a podcast not so long ago, and they said, what's the main thing that's driven you and has kept you on path and made you achieve the things you wanted to achieve? I said, I never had a plan B, because then I couldn't put 100% into plan A. If plan A didn't work, I made another plan A.
Yeah.
No, not having something to fall back on. So I just realized now I also have that from you. Why do you think you never get tired of it? Sometimes I've called you after a long period of teaching, or I'm traveling and I go home and then I had 20 horses waiting for me and the next load of horses to break in, and I said, I don't feel like going to the next clinic and doing another 14 hours of teaching. You say, I don't really have that. What's kept?
I think it's because, first of all, I love what I'm doing. And then this satisfaction that I can teach a horse something. And a lot of people say, yeah, but that's all only tricks. You're working with tricks. But that's because they never have the patience to stand and look what I'm doing. Because I never work with tricks. I teach them things. And it takes sometimes a long time to teach a horse. But then the satisfaction when you have taught a horse something and you don't see the horse for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you take the horse in hand again, or you get on, or whatever you do, and you say, it's there.
Yeah.
Then it's really taught because it's there. I don't have to force it out of the horse. It gives me this thing.
Yeah.
And that's the most satisfaction thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the teaching of it, and then you feel, especially what you say, if you haven't seen the horse for a while and then you pick up the rein and then he's looking at you like,
you again.
Yeah.
and one thing that Ostermeyer said, I never got to meet him in person. I met his wife and I talked a lot with her, and I talked with him once, but I never met him in person. But what he said was, everything you force into a horse, you have to force out. Everything you play into a horse, you can play out. And that stick with me and still does.
Yeah.
So I try never to force anything into a horse. I try because I also make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I've also quoted that on clinics I've given. Also at the World Cup final, I gave a masterclass there, and I was watching the warming up, and that quote from you came in my head, and I opened the clinic. I had a whole introduction and a fancy way I was going to explain what I was going to let them see, and just that quote that you once said to me, that you can only ever force 50% out of them, and what you force into them you have to force out of them.
Yeah.
Is such a...
If you want 100%, they have to give it to you.
Yeah.
You cannot make them do it.
It has to be owned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to give it.
Yeah. And what is it, do you think, in the horses where you really teach them something? What is the sensation or the feeling they get to want to give you that 100%? The excitement, the knowledge of knowing it, or...
I don't know. It's that feeling that when you stand next to a horse and you're trying to teach it something and you give it a break and it says, that's so satisfying, that moment.
Yeah. And then just as you pick up the reins the next time,
It's
before
there.
you even ask, bam.
When you just think it, it's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so nice.
Yeah. And is that then the ultimate in the end, that it becomes just a thought? You don't have to really...
That's I don't know if we ever come there. I still hope that we come there. But if you write dressage, it has to be so precise, and so it cannot be only a thought. It has to be something we give an aid for.
Yeah.
But if we give an aid and we continue giving an aid, if we give an aid for Piaffe and we continue giving aid for Piaffe, then the continuing of giving an aid will be the negative thing.
Yeah.
It won't get the Piaffe positive. It will make the Piaffe negative.
Yeah.
Because we are giving an aid, we are knacking on the horse.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way that we give an aid, and then when the horse does it, we don't give an aid.
Yeah.
And that the horse continues.
Yeah.
Because it says, that's what he wants.
Yeah.
And that took me so long to figure out.
Yeah.
And it still is a question sometimes.
Yeah. I actually felt that a little bit, I learned that also from you with my copying you with my personnel in the stable, because always in the past I'd experienced someone ordering me to do something, do this, do that, do this. And I remember coming in sometimes with some young horses, and I'd made the horse ready, and I would come into the arena and you had your back to me, and then you would be working with the horse in hand, and I would come in and you would just do like this. And I was like, he's not even looking at me. What is wrong? And I would go out and I untwist the lunge and look the saddle blanket straight, look the noseband straight. So I was then motivated to
figure out what it was.
You never even said anything. Just like, and I think, shit. What? And that was that motivation then to self-help, to do it, to come in the next time. When we talked a little bit about it yesterday, actually, this continuing the aids, and then the horses then starting to feel like that's negative, they're being pushed, they're being made. Is it the same process then when we go into the warming up, and for instance, we talked about last night, you see the 50 diagonals of the tempies or the 100 extended trots, or continuously doing something where the horse makes a mistake, and then the rider gets insecure and has to test it, even though we've done it 100 times at home, we know it's in there.
Yeah. But I think that's more trust in yourself.
Yeah.
That you are not trusting yourself that you can do it. So you have to practice it on the warm-up.
Yeah.
I had a horse once, my first horse that went to the Olympics, one of the first Grand Prix I did on that horse. I knew that the first time I did the 2s and the 1s was always perfect. And if I did it 2, 3, 4 times, I would make mistakes, because then I felt I can do it. And then I made mistakes.
Yeah.
So on one show, I rode only 4s and 3s in the warm-up. And the owner came to me and said, just before I went in, and she said to me, "Are you aware of that there's no 4s and 3s in this test?" And I said, "Don't worry."
Yeah.
And because I knew the first time will be good. And that also made that when I came through the corner, I had to really prepare, because that was the first time.
Yeah.
If I had done it on the warm-up and it worked, then I would take it a little bit sloppy on the test.
Yeah.
And that made me concentrate better.
Yeah. And what do you think goes through the horse's mind if someone, say for instance, in the changes, comes on the diagonal, he makes a mistake on number 5, and the person stops the horse, and then he thinks he's telling him to listen more, and he comes around, and then when he gets in the ring, he goes on the diagonal.
Yeah, but if you correct the mistake by stopping, then the horse says, "Oh, if I make a mistake, he stops."
Yeah. So you're in that moment teaching him
To
exactly
stop.
that. Yeah.
And make a mistake, because if you make a mistake, you don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah. And then you go in the ring, and on number 5,
They make a mistake. It's the same as when you teach a young horse to go from trot to canter, and then you want to teach them to extend the trot a little bit. And then they go into canter, and people are saying, "Ho, ho."
Yeah.
And then the horse says, if I go into canter, I get rewarded.
Yeah. And then you get a completely missed signal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's I can watch somebody doing it, and I teach somebody doing it, and it hurts inside me, because I can see how frustrated the horse gets.
Yeah. It's such a
Because we
basic
don't
thing.
give clear signals.
Yeah. And then going back to then going in the ring, that also, like you say, it takes a lot of trust. You have to trust yourself, but it also takes a little bit of courage to, if your mind is telling you, okay, I'm not sure that they're there, or I think I'm going to make a mistake, and you say, don't do them in the warming up, just save it for the ring. You need that experience one time to go, you were right, it worked.
Yeah.
For you to feel comfortable to be able to do that.
But of course you don't do that at the Olympics, because
Yeah.
the first time you do it somewhere else the first time, so that you know you can do it.
Yeah. Then you have to have big balls if you're going to do that at the Olympics first time.
And I don't have that.
Yeah. What is a successful life with horses for you? Because of course you've ridden 2 Olympic Games and you're training some of the best riders in the world. But I know, because I know you, that that's not the most important and not the representation of what you think is successful. And I remember, actually, let's start with that story. Just to give a little bit of stories. We'll start with the story to give a little bit of framework to this. What is successful? What is your version of being successful in horses? I remember you telling me a little while back that your daughter Victoria went to the stallion show. Just to clarify the importance of accolades and success. So she was there with a friend. She went to the stallion show in Herning,
and she met somebody that knew me, and they asked her, "What are you doing here?" I got the tickets from my parents. And who are your parents? She said. They asked her, and she told them my name. And then the guy said, he's famous. And Victoria said, no, that's not my father.
There's somebody else.
Yeah, that must be somebody else.
Yeah.
And then he convinced her that I rode the Olympics, and I pick her up in the evening. And the first thing I could see when she got into the car, that she was pissed. And then she got in the car, and the first thing she asked me, "Did you ride the Olympics?" I said, "Yes." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I said, "I'm the same if I did or not."
Yeah.
And she said, "But you could have told me." I said, "Yeah, but I never thought about telling you."
Yeah. Yeah. And so what is it then? I find that's always a great story, because then it is also how you are. That's not the focus. It's not on the accolades, and just like you say, you're not a different person because you rode, in the top with the thing that everybody in sport is sometimes striving for, and sometimes I feel forgets the why we are in horses. They get only for the goal, and I've been there, and I've ridden at that championship, and I have over this percentage, and I've been on the team, and I'm doing all this. So what is it for you that what does having a successful life with horses look like for you?
That I have this feeling that, first of all, that they like me, the horses likes me, and that I really can teach them something. That I feel that I'm good at teaching the horse something.
Yeah. And then his life is better from the fact that he's learned something that is going to serve him in his life.
And I think I always learn something new with this, but also because I'm searching.
Yeah. I also learned that from you, the importance of teaching a horse something changes people's perspective of how they believe that horse is.
Yeah.
I have a problem horse come in, and they have a story, and they have a perception that he is a shit horse, and he doesn't do this and doesn't do that. And, we teach them to park in at the block when we get on. And they come in, and you already see the people thinking, so, okay, has he stopped his rearing thing or whatever? And before you've done anything, you stand on the block and the horse parks in, and he stands relaxed, and they think, wow.
How did you force him to do that?
Yeah, but that they forget about the fact that you teach him something actually very simple to teach, but now the people see him as
clever. Yeah.
That it's now a clever horse, and he has value, and of course it has value, and that the human views him as being something valuable or of value, something
and
pleasurable,
something that you can teach,
you can
train.
work with, is useful. So you're actually in that moment of teaching him something. And I remember also talking to some people along the way when I'd said that you had been my mentor from the beginning. People had said, I one time sent Morten a jumping horse, and it was spooky or was doing something, and he came there, and then he was riding, and then he showed me the one tempies. It was a jumping horse, but I thought, wow, that horse can learn something.
But it's for me, it's that I can teach them something.
Yeah.
And it gives me a satisfaction.
Yeah.
That I can teach them something.
Yeah.
And that I feel that they learn something.
Yeah.
And also one of the people that have been influenced to that also is the wife of Ostermeyer said to me, the Bible of Albert Ostermeyer was the book of James Phillis. So I bought the book of James Phillis and read it, and I read it, and I read it. I think I read it 5 or 6 times before I started to.
We still read it sometimes.
Yeah. Because I learn something new every time.
Yeah.
And that's the first book that describes not what you do to get a perfect result, but what you do if the horse doesn't do what you want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so many ways in that book. It's not the way he wrote, because that's not interesting. It's the way he thought,
Yeah.
the way he was thinking about teaching a horse things.
Yeah.
That interested me.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that people miss, the value in that. And sometimes people look at someone that is riding in a certain way and say, and not realizing the skill or the real talent they have in.
But because one thing is to ride a Grand Prix and to press the bottoms for the Grand Prix. But another thing is to take a horse that is not broken in and then break it in and then ride it all the way to Grand Prix.
Yeah. Teach it everything.
Teach it everything.
Yeah.
And Phillies was very good at doing that. And the way he describes that is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I like that way of thinking, that he solved problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And also went about it in a way of, we talked also about that last night, that he's not giving a step 1, 2, 3, but a way in which he thought about going about it.
But one of the things that I saw in that book was he starts with, he describes how he starts a young horse. Mm-hmm. And in the book it stands that he lets it free and then he treats it with the launching whip until it's following him. And that sentence was hanging with me for so many years. How can he treat a horse with the whip until it follows him? And then I saw, I don't know if you introduced me to it or somebody that got the horse to join up. And then I thought, oh shit, he wrote that book. He published that book 1896.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was talking about this joining up.
Yeah. Making a connection and before.
But he didn't know how to describe it. He just said he treats it with the whip until it's following him.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine what he did.
Yeah.
Until I saw it the first time.
Yeah. And then you think about the modern talking now, when we're talking about connection before training and all of these things, and from that time, 1800s.
He did that.
Yeah.
But nobody noticed that.
No. Yeah. So those important things, of course, that we sometimes are skipping over.
Yeah, and you read it and then you don't understand it, and then you say, he was stupid.
Yeah.
But it's me that was too stupid to understand what he meant.
Yeah. And like you say, you read the book a few times and then
it's what's between the lines that is important.
Yeah. Like everything. Like when you watch a trainer, you're sitting there and thinking you know what he's doing, and then you have to look long enough to really know what it is.
Yeah.
Start to see it. It's interesting because, of course, you've taught me many things, but the one key thing was not only exactly that, not only to look, but to actually see and you showed me how to search and how to find out what was the best way for that horse to really learn something. And that has served me in the richest way possible in the whole of my life journey, with everything that I've experienced. And when I have other influences, that key thing of searching for what it is that will actually work with that horse, that has been the key to the extent of nearly all my horse knowledge that I have today. That one thing about searching, what is it that works for that horse? When I work with a new horse, I even find now that I still can be freestyling in that moment, thinking, what is it that this horse actually needs in this moment? And to really see that and to really find those things. So how would you, and that's one thing that's really been powerful for me and been of great value. But what are some of the things you would suggest to somebody to take the right steps and to find their right way in working with horses, to be able to, in the end, that they can walk the walk?
I don't think there's any right way. There's many ways, and if you are open for all the ways that there is, then, and not say I can do it, because I still don't think I can do it. I can do a lot, but I still a lot of things that I cannot do, and that motivation makes me keep going.
Yeah.
And if you are a trainer and you say I can do it, then you don't know shit.
Yeah.
You have to be humble and say there's still different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And search for these ways.
Yeah. Would you say then that's the key factor? If we talk about people that we meet, or you might be teaching and you call me and say, I met a guy, he can do some good things, or he will learn. And then sometimes we say, I don't know, she will never learn it, or he will never learn it. But do you think that is a big factor in it? That the people that are humble and are open,
and they're searching.
Yeah.
And I love helping these people, giving them ideas,
Yeah.
to get better.
Yeah.
Not that I tell them what to do, because they don't have my body, I don't have their body.
Yeah.
I don't have their mind, they don't have my mind.
Yeah.
So I have to encourage them to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then do you find, if you talking about the letting them find the way through the curiosity and being humble, having those elements, do you find then sometimes students will do things and then they send you a video or you show you something, they, wow, I didn't think of that before?
Yeah, I often experience that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I often experience that, and I always encourage them to send me videos, because I'm interested in what they do and how they do it.
Yeah.
So I always say, send me a video of the show, or send me a video of the warm-up, or send me a video of what you're doing at home, because I want to see.
Yeah. How what they've come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think then, if we talk about people like Ostermeyer and like Phyllis and like the TRT method?
Not to forget.
I'm not putting myself, there was just an extra name.
No,
I
it was just
same category.
the line.
Not in any particular order.
No, exactly.
But what do you think all these great horsemen have in common?
I think that they are still searching.
Yeah.
They are still searching to get better.
Yeah.
They don't say, I can do it.
And what do you think brings them onto, we talk about sometimes that it becomes an art.
It becomes an art when you start to be so fine in your aids, and you start to get this feeling that the horse is offering things. Then I think it becomes an art.
Yeah.
Because everybody can pull and everybody can kick.
Yeah.
But to get it so that the horse starts to think with you, then it's getting an art.
And then is it understanding the process of the steps you have to do to teach, or is it understanding how the horse is processing what you're asking?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both. If you don't know what you're doing, how should the horse know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Because they can only act to something we are doing.
Yeah.
Everything the horse does is a result of something we do.
Yeah.
And often we don't know what we are doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or what our body is doing.
Yeah.
And especially, I think very interesting is when you work a horse in hand and you get them really to relax and when you come with the backstick. And then you walk away from them and then you walk up to them without taking the backstick. And already when you walk up, then just your presence make them say, oh, I need to do this or this or this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't really realize that you have so much power in your body.
Yeah.
You think it's a backstick, but it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. How much of your body language is
How this works.
Yeah. I had an interesting discussion recently in Australia with our good friend Dan, Cowboy Dan. And I said, so what are you working on with the horses at the moment? He said, yeah, I did away with all my tools, my bagstick, my whip, and everything. Actually, I don't wear cowboy boots anymore. I just wear these runners so I can take the shoelace out, and I just go and work my horse with the shoelace. So it's Dan the man's way of saying it's not about the things, but it's how your energy and your being is going to affect everything in what you're doing. Yeah. So if we then thinking about the teaching of something and the perspective of how some people sometimes see it, we can often hear the word circus. We talked about it before. That, and especially some years back, I remember coming back from you and I was teaching all my horses to lift the front leg. And I remember also we went to the stallion show. You were there with Bernstein and everybody was doing extended trot at the end and the clapping. And then you went to the middle and you did Spanish walk up the center line. And I was like, that was cool. And then I went home and I was at Dressage with the Stars in Werribee. And the same thing. And I had a grey horse at that time for Jim and Emmy. And I went to center line and did Spanish walk. And I remember Harry Bolt was judging and two other guys. And he called me over and he said to me, this is not dressage, this is circus, what you're doing here. And I didn't say anything. And then Stephen Clark came to me afterwards and he said, you should be proud. Not everybody can teach this. And if you can teach this, you can teach all the other things. This is a 5-year-old horse. You keep learning him things. And that for me was also a bit like, what is he talking about? That it's not dressage anymore, but it's circus.
I think it's because it's not in the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
There's that lesson that's not in the Grand Prix, but it's something you teach your horse. Phyllis was teaching every horse Spanish walk, but it's because it's not something that is common to teach. But when you teach Spanish walk, you give a clue, and the horse says, "Oh, from that clue, I have to do that." But we also give a clue to make walk canter. We don't give forward impulsion to make walk canter. We give a clue, and then we give a key, and then the horse goes into canter. Because if we teach a horse to go into canter from a forward impulsion, then when you come to the flying chins, it's running away.
Yeah.
So you need to make it go into canter on a key, so that when you go from canter to canter, you can give the same key to the other side.
Yeah.
And then this is also circus. What is circus and what is dressage?
Yeah.
Is it only dressage if we hold and push something through?
Yeah.
Or is it dressage if we teach the horse something?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter what we teach the horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, if you want more front leg in the trot, then why not teach it that you can get it to lift the front leg?
Yeah.
When you need to have more hind leg in the trot or more hind leg in the piaffe, then teach it to lift the hind leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you want the horse to go more over in the half pass, then teach it to react better on the leg.
Yeah.
Is that circus?
Yes. Yeah. It's actually in the end all the same when you look at it like that.
It's all the same.
Yeah. That's also an interesting piece of information. Just the word canter, giving the key or the sign or the signal, and not forward impulsion.
Yeah.
You see that a lot when people are following a riding system of riding, or they're thinking about riding. A lot of those mistakes come in when you say people they can't do the changes because he's running off, or that's then going on that path of not thinking about teaching the key or the explanation or the aid of, now this is what I want, or this is what we're asking.
It comes from when you teach a young horse to go into canter. If you always teach them that you push forward to go into canter, then of course they will run in the transition from trot to canter or from walk to canter.
Yeah.
But then you have a problem when you want to make the flying change.
Yeah.
And why teach them to run first? I always say, teach them the right thing first.
Yeah.
Don't teach them something in a wrong way, and then you have to teach them one more time what you want.
Yeah. You have to unteach and reteach.
Exactly. Why not teach them the right way, right way?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also sometimes difficult if you have not had a horse all the way to Grand Prix, or you've never taught a horse flying changes. When you start and you're just going into canter, you don't think that, okay, now I have a problem here. And even when you are there, you think in this moment, he's running and he shouldn't be running, but you don't realize, but that's what you taught him. The association to canter.
Yeah.
To go into a canter or a new canter.
And then you have to hold the reins so that he doesn't run off. And when you have to hold the reins and you give the aid, then you're making a conflict in the horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to go into canter without giving a conflict.
Yeah. And you have to call that guy to fix it.
Yeah. But if you start talking to people about that, then they start to realize that, oh, maybe I have to do it some another way.
Yeah.
And that's when they start to think about what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they can continue.
Yeah.
Because then it's not difficult to teach your horse everything. It's difficult to teach them, and it's so beautiful as Jessica from Bredo Werntel, that you sit so beautiful as she does. That's difficult, but we don't all have that body, and we don't all have that horse.
Yeah.
So, but teaching a horse everything is not difficult.
Yeah.
It's just that you think about what you're doing.
Yeah. 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 Some of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we of course talked about the squeezing the 50% out of them. Do you think then a lot of horses in that process actually don't ever reach the potential of the Grand Prix because they're not taught the things? In the end, people say, he's not good enough, or he will never learn the piaffe because when we kicked him and whipped him, or someone followed me, or I got that piaffe guy that hit him a lot, he didn't do it, he will never do it. Do you think a lot of horses then are not coming to their full potential or becoming useful?
If you continue that way of training, I don't think that they will always be like negative in some way.
Yeah.
On the rider or on the training.
Yeah.
If you can turn that around, and so that they start to give something, then I think you can change a horse totally.
Yeah, yeah. And by then bringing the horse out of that feeling like he's being forced or being made, but giving clarity to what he has to do, and him understanding.
Yeah, and what I learned from some of my rider also, I learned a lot of things from teaching a rider and then see what they're doing.
Yeah.
What we used to do is, if they do something good, we stop them and we pat them and we squash them, and so then the horse thinks, if I'm good, I have to stop.
Yeah.
But we need to find a way that the horse says, oh, now I'm good, I'm doing more.
Yeah.
Because then I'm even better.
Yeah.
And how do we get that anxiety into the horse that they say, I want to do more?
Yeah.
And I've seen riders that then, when they're doing good, they stand up and let them canter off.
Yeah.
And so then the horse thinks, oh, now I get freedom.
You
And-
feel it in the body.
Yeah. And then they it looks like the horses think different afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that also why you use the voice a lot? I remember in the beginning when I first came to you and I had, yeah, and I was thinking, what's going on in there? And then after a while, I got to hear the energy in the school, like, oh, that horse is doing good today.
Yeah, but I think if they don't feel that I appreciate what they do,
Yeah.
then why should they do it?
Yeah. Yeah. So not only the reward for them, but letting them know that you are excited, you're appreciating, you're happy.
Yeah, and I get excited. You
Yeah.
know me, I get excited. I cannot sit down and look like poker face.
No. But that's, I think, a really interesting thing to bring across to the horses, because I think a lot of horses, they get in a negative spiral. That one thing is they stop being a pleaser. They stop wanting to please the person, because why should I?
I don't get anything.
No. So it's not only to be told, yes, you're doing good, but that you also make me feel good.
Yeah.
And then you have that real connection where you can come together and build something more.
It's not anything more satisfying than being next to a horse, and you can feel if I just put energy, then he grows.
Yeah. Shows more and more
Yeah,
of himself.
more and more, and get more and more proud.
Yeah. Why don't we see you at the shows? We've training, of course, you being at the shows, and you're training many top riders. You've been teaching me since I was 21. I'm now 45. I think we've been on the show a couple of times together. And you, culturally, what I see in dressage is the most important thing for the trainer is that he's on the show, or at least that he's seen that he's on the show. But you're not like that.
No, I cannot change anything at the show.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to touch the horse. I've been on some shows, but it's not satisfying for me. It's the training at home that is satisfying for me.
Yeah.
And then others can stand on the show and help them on the show. But and I also sometimes at the show, but then I'm not. I don't need to stand in front of the camera.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I cannot change anything there.
Yeah. And then the training and the work at home is, and then almost letting them go to the show and then seeing what is that.
I often see the rides on my riders.
Yeah.
I see how they're doing, and then we talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can see what they're feeling in the show, and when they're in the test, and I think it's more important that we talk about that.
Mm-hmm. And do you see, when you see one of your riders on the show and you've seen that you worked on, maybe the horse was a little bit insecure in the piaffe, or he wasn't able to stand still before the reinback, and you worked on that, is there also something that gives you energy, that when you watch and you see you've worked on it and you see in the ring, he has it?
Yeah, that's so satisfying.
Yeah. And also to see it on the horse, that in that moment when it really counts.
And only these small changes that you get the shoulder in before a period, or you get the shoulders in before a flying change and things like this, that was a problem. When you see that and it works in the ring, it's really nice.
Yeah, then you can be proud.
Yeah.
Also on the rider, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Because they have remembered, and in that pressure situation, they're doing exactly what
we trained.
Yeah. So a major quote that I've also adopted, and it was a way of thinking from you. I even have said it many times in demos, and I live by it, because I kind of feel that in the end, like you said before, he has his mind, he has his body, and I want to try to learn myself to be the best I can be, for as good as I can do it, and learn it and become good in my trade and my skill. And the quote is, "This is just the way I do it." And, you never claim to be something you're not. And you never say, this is the way and this is the only way you have to do it. You always just say, this is just the way I do it.
And that's the way it works for me.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work that way for me, I try this way or this way. And I think that's how I am.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think then, of course, when I have heard that from you, it was not only, and when I say it in a clinic, it's not only that the people can be open to looking and not believing that you're selling the way, but I also feel, and I felt it from you when you've told it to me, but I also feel it from other people, that it opens them up to have the belief that they can do it in themselves. They don't have to do it exactly this way and as good as me.
No.
But this is what's worked for me. And there's a possibility that you will also find a way that works for you.
Yeah.
And I find that a really refreshing place to put myself, but also in contrast to sometimes feeling in discussions or seeing other people do a demo or a clinic that they're really preaching that this is it. And I have to prove to you that this is the way and everything else is bullshit. And if you don't do it like this, then you don't know anything.
We done clinics together also, and you know how people are afterwards. And I don't want to offend people. I just want to show them what I do.
Yeah.
And then they can take what they want, or they can leave everything. They don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But that's what works for me.
Yeah.
And I can show them that it works.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm telling them that it works.
Yeah.
And I think that's most important. That gives the respect from people. If we say, look, that's how we do it, and now we demonstrate how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also when you see somebody that sees something for 2 minutes and then they immediately make a judgment, that's they're looking not from the perspective of what could work for me or this is working for him, this is interesting. They're immediately making a comparison that this is not how we do it. This is not in the classical way, or this is not how our trainers had made horses. So
yeah,
then,
but what is classical?
yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, because what is classical? Is it classical if you teach a horse something by force?
Yeah.
Or is it classical when you get the horse to do it by itself?
Yeah.
And I often discuss that with riders, because they say, but this is not classical, what you're doing. And for me, it's I don't know what's classical.
Yes.
I do what works.
Yeah.
For me, it's about that the horse learns everything.
Yeah.
And not how it learns everything.
Yeah. Yes.
And for me, it's about finding people that can helping me find a new way to teach you something.
Yeah. Yeah. And not being strict on a certain system or style. And when it's outside of that, then you classify it as not being classical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which of course is a limitation to everything, because every horse is different.
And it's just the thing like teaching a horse to lay down.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I had one way of laying down the horse, and I didn't know what worked, so I had to figure out my own work, and I couldn't see somebody doing it. So, and the people that I saw do it never showed me how they did it, they just did it. And then over time you learn different ways of laying a horse down.
Yeah.
And then you get better and better in feeling what way you need to do it.
Yeah.
It's the same as doing piaffe. It's you want a certain picture when you see a horse, and you want a certain figure of a sculpture of the horse,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to create that sculpture, and you have to find out how you create that sculpture.
Yeah.
And you cannot force that sculpture into the horse.
Yeah.
You have to get them also to find a way that they feel their body.
Yeah. Do you think people in the process of teaching Piaffe are sometimes looking for the end result in the beginning?
Too much.
Yeah.
They want to have it on the spot, and they cannot understand why they cannot do it on the spot. And the horse should do it on the spot, so they keep it on the spot and then want to teach it Piaffe instead of trying to teach the horse the Piaffe and then slowly bring it back on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah.
And some people are not teaching the Piaffe. Some people are forcing the Piaffe.
Putting pressure in, and the horse does something
Yeah.
out
And
of
then
pressure.
and then they don't understand why it won't continue.
Yeah.
But if you call a dog and every time you call a dog you hit it, then see how many times the dog comes to you.
Yeah.
Because coming to you is not pleasant.
Yeah.
It's not
Rewarding.
rewarding.
Yeah.
And if you always have to hit your horse to do Piaffe,
Yeah.
then Piaffe will be shit.
Yeah.
It will be so negative.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And if we start to think that way, then we can start to teach horses better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what we teach a horse.
Yeah. The sculpture analogy is a good one, because if you're just sculpting something, even if you think about a lump of clay and you want the end result by hitting it a bit, like that never comes. You have to first make the first initial shape
Yeah.
and give an idea of the form.
Yeah.
And then you slowly get in the end to the detail.
Yeah.
So it's, but yeah, you see that a lot when someone says it's not working, it's often that they miss that process.
And they look at me lifting legs or you lifting legs on a horse, and then that's boring. We go on to, when are you doing the next thing?
Yeah.
And let's see something more interesting.
Yeah.
But they miss the point if they don't watch this.
Yeah. And do you think that is worse in the current time than before? Because of course people's relationship to time now is completely altered.
They
if you can order something today and it's here tomorrow,
yeah,
then
and they
watching
look
10
at
minutes.
Yeah, they look at the internet and then they see the finished result. But I think it was always like this.
Okay.
I think people get a little bit impatient and doesn't really realize how long it takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I have a young horse that piaffes, they say, it's too early to do piaffe on a young horse. But they don't see the time I used for the preparation, and they don't see how the horse is, that the horse is never forced to do it.
Yeah.
And the horse is totally relaxed, and I don't do it 100 steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do it so that they know they have to do it, and then or not that they have to do it, but they offer to do it,
Yeah.
and then I stop doing it.
Yeah. And if you make the contrast between a horse galloping in the sand and bucking and kicking and running, and then doing this,
It's
very
nothing.
little,
Yeah,
the physical.
it's not difficult.
No.
It takes a long time to teach them.
Yeah.
But if you have a way of teaching that they understand, then everything is relative. Everything is.
Yeah. And why do you think then that a lot of people have the piaffe guy? Because if you think most Grand Prix riders, they are able to teach. I mean, there's a lot that do everything themselves, but there is also a lot that have that guy that's only coming for that. And if I look at a formula and I think of the one tempies, and if I write down the formula for one tempies, canter transition, walk canter, one flying change, 5, and you write it down, and then you write a formula down, the steps for piaffe, it's much, much shorter and less complex.
Yeah, but they don't see it that way.
No.
Because a lot of the stuff from the Grand Prix you can actually do by forcing the horse to do it.
Yeah.
But you cannot force the horse to do piaffe.
Yeah. That's,
And you cannot force a horse to do Spanish walk. You cannot force a horse to do lay down.
yeah.
So actually, these exercises would be very good to teach the young instructors that they have to learn to lay down a horse. They have to learn to do Spanish walk. They have to learn to do piaffe in order to be an instructor.
Yeah.
Because then they realize that you cannot force it.
Yeah. You think then the things that are missing? I remember the first time I went to the German Federation and I had the last year riders. They came with a horse and they wanted to take the halter off and put my halter on. The horse ran away in the school. And then they ran out. And they said, the horse is that way. They were going to get the bucket of feed and to close the gate. And I think, they couldn't catch the horse.
No.
They didn't know the first part of catching the horse.
And then they didn't get this part that Phyllis was taking. I treat the horse with the lunge whip until it follows me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They jumped over this step.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you jump over somewhere,
Yeah.
then it's difficult to get the end result.
Yeah. They were the first thing when I asked, what you're in your last year, what is it you're interested in? Yeah, I'm riding some St. George now, and they're only focused on
Competition.
Right.
And in the order, you teach the horse in the order that the competition comes.
Yeah.
So one of the first thing I teach my horses is piaffe.
Yeah.
Also because I can shape the body better if they learn the principle of piaffe.
What is posture?
Yeah,
what is
exactly. It will change totally the horse.
Yeah. And then normal canter, the basic gaits are more balanced, not on the front.
Everything is changed.
Yeah.
If they just learn the basic of piaffe.
Yeah. The book. Without giving much away, you soon to release a book. And you don't have to tell much about what is in it or what it's about. But for you, what is the purpose of writing the book?
The purpose of writing the book was to give something to my daughter. So that if my daughter wanted to ride, and if I'm not here anymore and she has questions, I try to answer all her questions in the book. That means it's not, I wrote the book not as you have to do like this, but it's if you have this question, I solved that problem like this, or I solved that problem like this. So it's more problem-solving book.
Yeah. Something of a true resource to say, this is what my father did.
Yeah.
This is what he learned from working with horses.
And so that this year it's 50 years since I started as a student, instructor student or riding student. And all these things that I picked up, and some things works and something doesn't work. And something works especially on this kind of horses or in these situations. She doesn't need to try out and say, oh, that doesn't work. Yeah. She can read the book and say, oh, my father said it doesn't work. Yeah. So I don't have to go down that path.
Yeah. Yeah. It was also the thing you told me when I did something really stupid in the stable in the beginning. I remember the thing you said, you don't need to make the same mistakes I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Next generation learning.
Yeah, because then it takes too long for you to learn if you do the same mistakes that I have done.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why I wondered in the beginning, why shouldn't I be able to break in a horse so that it doesn't buck? Why do I have to fall off every time?
Yeah.
Or get good at sitting in the saddle.
Yeah.
And I was not good at sitting in the saddle. I fell off all the time.
Yeah. And that is all actually the search through Phyllis and Ostermeyer and everybody that's influenced the search of how to do something in order to not have to make a mistake or to get into a frustration or find a solution for that particular horse you find. It's that search.
Yeah, because I think then everything gets easier.
Yeah.
And that was my motivation for writing the book. And then you said, and a lot of my writers said, I want to read the book.
Yeah.
But I have writers that had made a book out of what I told them. So they have a book called Morten Quotes.
The versions. Do you think it's important then for guys to be able to, like, can you imagine if Phyllis never wrote a book?
If Phyllis never wrote a book, I would be...
About Klaus as well, Balkenhal. You said, like, is it important for those people to really
I think it would be... My personally thought is that there's a lot of people that I would love read a book from.
Yeah.
That what did they do? What works for them?
Yeah.
Maybe I find a new way
Yeah.
that works for me.
Yeah. Yeah. To be able to find, and I think also there's a lot of, okay, we have the internet and videos and things now, but there's a lot of trainers that you hear a story that they did something. You know, there was quite some guys in Australia with stock horses, you know, that were teaching the horses to, one guy, for instance, would be lying we've seen the photos and things, lying in a stretcher, and the horse would pick up the stretcher and carry him in a stretcher. And you think, how does you even start to teach a horse to be able to carry weight in his mouth and not let it go? And then, of course, that knowledge, if not written or recorded, it dies with that person.
Yeah.
It's lost.
Yeah.
And there's no way of getting it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many things of how you get that. And if nobody is writing it down, then it's still a question.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the waste.
Yeah, and then you have to figure out to make the hot water, the deep plate one more time.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. You have 3 beautiful children. Okay, can we say Jesper, looking like the Viking warrior, is beautiful, but he has some beautiful talents. So, but we've often heard the quote from Steve Harvey, the clip, where he quotes, "It's not what you leave to them that makes them great, but it's what you leave in them that's important." We just talked about the book, but what are some of the key elements you want to leave to your children in order for them to be?
I'm not a perfect father, and I shouldn't give anybody else an advice of what they have to do. But what I try to live from is that I want that they feel loved, and that I have the patience that I can say, you can make mistakes and I still love you.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to find your own way of doing things. It's not about, you don't have to do what I did, but you have to do what you want to do, so that you get up in the morning and love getting up in the morning and doing what you want to do. And it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you love what you're doing, then you will be successful.
Yeah.
Or you will. What is success? Success is that you are happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Success is not a big car. Success is not a lot of money. Success is that you are happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And where did you learn that?
The hard way.
Getting those things and then thinking that wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't know that was going to be your answer, but it leads perfectly into, they say you're lucky. You'd be lucky enough in life to find your purpose. And if you found your purpose, then you pretty good chance you'll have a good one. Some people never find it, and other people find their thing, but they never have the balls to go for it. Would you say you found your purpose in life, and what has that meant for you?
No, I don't know if I found my purpose, but I found something that I love doing. And at first, the recent years, I found out that it doesn't help that I found something that I love to do if it stays by me.
Yeah.
I need to give that on to somebody, because else it's gone with me.
Yeah.
If I don't give it on, if I don't share it with somebody, maybe you find your purpose, and then the purpose is to give it on to the next person.
Yeah.
So that the next person can be even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're sharing a lot of what is called experience with each other.
Yeah.
And I learn from you, you learn from me, and sometimes we learn something from somebody else by talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's that's what triggers me, or that's what makes me happy.
Yeah, for me also, I found probably in the early stages when I look to the people that my heroes, yourself, I sort of developed this idea that I have to achieve what I saw you'd ridden at 2 Olympic Games. I was there just before you went to Sydney to ride there. I was absorbing all these things. You had a stallion station, breeding stallions, mares, riding successful competitions, stallion shows, Olympics, teaching really top riders. And then I accumulated those ideals as what I had to do in order to be good. So I went on the path of chasing riding Grand Prix and being international. And when I got there, that meant that I was now good. And then I started to build a bit the more clinics and demos, and then started the TRT method. And then I realized that that was actually my passion is to learn as much as I can about myself through the horses. And my purpose was to be able to share it with others. And when I then really felt the benefit of sharing that with many people and getting the information and the stories then I realized that that's the energy we always had. That's what kept me going. And then I had it on a grand scale, and I was like, that's it. That was the thing. It wasn't being a Grand Prix rider or riding an Arkle or whatever it was.
It's nice to be able to ride these places, but what really fills you up inside is the feeling that you have a horse that you really taught something.
Yeah. And I remember telling you about that on the phone one time. We talked about a lot of things, and I said about the sharing the ideas and all that sort of thing. And you probably don't remember saying it, and it was really short, but you said just, now you get it. It's like when I would be working on something for a long time, and then I couldn't quite work it out, and I was tried many things and really rattled my brain.
The answer was here.
Yeah, and then you come in and you say, stop one moment. You know what? If you just go a little bit, think how fucking stupid, and you're right, and it just happens.
Yeah, because sometimes you get blind.
Yeah.
And you have to be open and to try to see it. I remember one time I had a horse that was not very good at doing piaffe, and I wrote a text to Kieran Kirkland and said, can I send you a video of a horse that I have trouble with getting to piaffe? And then I made the video, and I saw the video, and then I saw what I did wrong. Yeah. And then I texted her, I'm not sending the video, because as soon as I saw the video, I knew what I was doing wrong.
Yeah. And also the story that we remembered last night from the other night, when you said I was sleeping and then I woke up.
And I had the solution.
In my sleep.
Yeah. Because I think down deep, I was still searching for the solution. And in the sleep, I found the solution.
Yeah. And those solutions is always, I remember sometimes if you were away at a clinic and I would have one of the young horses and I worked and I put the flying chain, and you come back and I'd show you the flying chain, and you said, I already did that. Okay. You think, I got the solution, I'm going to show him. And then he's been doing that for a long time. I wanted to talk because I was deciding whether we talk about this or not, but we're about to go and work Dario, my Spanish unicorn, after this together. But we of course had an amazing trip. You have introduced me to the Spanish breeds. I had the experience of working some of the horses while I was riding together with you, Doncel, and a number of those horses, and we got to go to Spain to your good friend, who's now my good friend, Miguel, and I got now this new experience that's not one I had before, working with Dario and feeling that sensitivity. And I know you've had some amazing horses, Illuso, and over the time with those sorts of breeds. What is it that this energy that I have inside me now, and what we speak about often, that is in those breeds that brings you to that place of it becoming an art?
It's I think there are some of them, also warm bloods can be like this, but the horse, if you find a horse that sees you, that sees who you are and sees what you're doing, that really pay attention to you, then all of a sudden you get so much from them that you never got from somebody else.
Yeah.
And you realize what your body can do, what the energy in your body can do without doing a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the energy that you have a thought, and then all of a sudden the horse does things.
Yeah.
And you never experienced that. And all of a sudden you get a horse that looks through you and see all the mistakes you're doing, but also all the good thing you're doing.
Yeah.
I have a friend, you know him also, Christian Olsen, and he trains Labradors, and he got the Formula One from England. And he said, oh shit, this dog is reading me so fast that I realize how many mistakes I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I cannot do mistakes when I have to train this dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that makes me better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same with such kind of horses. They read you so fast
Yeah.
that we think we have to make them do things. They make us do things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I feel. That one thing on Dario, if I do something, I feel the next day all the mistakes I made.
Yeah.
He lets me feel all the things I was not aware of. He's offering things where I was like, did we have that conversation? And then you feel that. And also that thing of when you get into that zone where you feel the body is forming and shaping itself around you, that I feel on him that I'm sitting more in him and with him more than any other horse.
Instead of on top of him.
Yeah. They really bring you in to that space with you, and especially when they're just starting to develop their body and their shape, and they start
but you can get that feeling also on a warm blood horse, but it's so seldom to get that feeling. And I feel, me personally, I get more that feeling. I cannot get it so often on a horse that when I work with them in hand, then I more get that feeling that they are doing for me.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to get when you're sitting on them.
Yeah.
But when you get that feeling, it's the best feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also the difference for me. I feel that like throughout the time with the breeding, that those horses are really bred for the intelligence, for learning, for being sharp, for looking to be able to make the spectacular moves. And of course the growing up, on the terrain there. Like if I compare it to a warm blood here in Holland, flat ground, if they see a shadow, and these horses, the first day with Dario, I thought I do the groundwork and I do the tools. In 20 minutes he did everything. I put the plastic on the ground, and I have to spend a day on some of the warm bloods because they're so sure of themselves in a certain way.
But you can have warm blood that is the same, and there's also Spanish horses that are spooky and watching and not good in their mind. But there is like this in every breed. But I think what we looked for, and what we looked for something special when we went to Spain.
Yeah.
And we found something special.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And we were looking for that. We were not looking so much for the gates. We were looking for, of course, we were looking a little bit of the gates, but we were also looking for that eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and straight away I remember going in the arena there, and he was immediately showing himself and mimicking.
Paying that attention to you.
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah. And I think that's what we sometimes forget, because today we are looking at if they can go extended trot or if they can go a big walk, but we forget that it's here.
Yeah. And do you think that's with people and with horses, the try or the talent that's more important?
Oh, I'm not wise enough to say that.
But of course, with an extreme amount of talent with no try,
then it's a problem.
It's not worth anything.
It's better to have a good mind than the perfect body.
Yeah.
Because with a good mind, then you can train the body to be perfect.
So with short legs and
you can still
trying
learn.
a lot, you can still learn. Not the perfect body.
It's like we said 25 years ago or 24 years ago.
Yeah.
You cannot make your legs longer.
No, that's right. They didn't get longer either.
No.
So we often talk about our bucket list. If you could only do one more thing with a horse in your life, what would it be?
That's very easy.
Yeah.
I would love to try to train everything I've seen people do with a horse, that I could do that, everything with one horse.
Yeah.
The different exercises, the different things on the ground, lay down, sit, chambret, the period in chambret, the all the things that when I send you videos, say, look at this.
Yeah.
We have to try to train this.
So that's the one, like to find that one horse and be able to
and have the
complete.
time and not always have to say, it has to go Grand Prix and then we sell it.
Yeah.
I would like to have one where I said, okay, I keep it and I have to see if I'm good enough to train everything.
Yeah. And that is that's the plan. That's on the bucket list.
That's on the bucket list.
Yeah.
With the horses.
Yeah.
We have a lot on the bucket list.
Yeah, we have a lot on the bucket list. Okay, I could ask 1,000,001 questions, and I've had to edit this and shorten it and try to keep it under the 5 hours.
And tomorrow we talk again and we get new things.
We get new things. So, but I want to thank you. Of course, I don't know what the time's been, but it's gone like every time we talk. It goes in a blink of an eye. But thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And again,
I haven't shared anything.
You shared a lot, really a lot, as usual, and keeping the humble position. And I'm grateful for you as my friend.
I'm happy to have you as my friend.
So guys, I don't have to tell you to share this one. It's packed full of interesting, amazing stuff. So see you next time. Be good to your horses.